any questions that you have. Let's see. Okay, so are we streaming right now then, Jenny? We're good to go?
We
Okay, all right. I'm going to say a welcome to those who are just tuning in. So, welcome if you're tuning in on YouTube. My name is Jennifer Hoprich, and I'm so happy that you're here and that you have found this resource. I want to share with you a little bit about Fourth Trimester Arizona. So, Fourth Trimester Arizona was established to honor and support parents as they navigate the very real challenges and joys of parenthood, and to connect them with a community that embraces and supports them in parenting. We are the village into which Arizona families are born, and we aim to change the culture of parenting in our community so that no one has to do this alone. In our village, families are loved, they are seen as capable, and they belong. This is our time to be here for Arizona families, so thank you for joining us. All right, so our topic for today is what I wish I knew then. So this is for new parents, and in parenting, there's always so much mystery, I think, about what we need to do, how we need to do it, and of course, each child is unique, each baby is unique with their needs. But we wanted to talk about some of the more general questions that we see. Today we're really lucky because we have a group of professionals who are joining us as well who can offer some sage advice, some wisdom, what they've seen not only in their own journey, but as they've been serving other families of young children and babies as well. So the first thing that I want to invite us to do is to consider some questions like, what are we seeing? What were the big questions that we had when we were in those first, years of parenting? And I know we have some members who are on live with us right now who are in that time period as well. But I'd love to just hear. So those who are on Zoom, you can put them in the chat. What was on your heart? What was on your mind? What was at the forefront for you? Or what was most mysterious or confusing? Um, One of the things that I want to share, and we can kind of start the conversation with, and then we'll see what other questions come through in the chat, is sleep. So I feel like this is one of the things that every new parent has to contend with is like, how do I get this child to sleep? What is normal for sleep? What can I expect with this? I feel like in our culture, just in general, we see parents talking about like parents will ask other parents, or maybe they're an older generation, will just ask like, how is the baby sleeping? Is the baby sleeping through the night yet? That seems to be a super common question. And I think parents are getting asked that question when their babies are 2 weeks old, a month old, and it's like, no. and and then the parents are kind of questioning themselves, like, am I doing something wrong here? So I would love to have anybody to share. Like, if someone is getting asked that question, is your baby sleeping through the night yet? What are some of the considerations that we need to think about? What have you seen as far as your own experience or families that you've worked with as far as when a baby would be sleeping through the night? And even how do we define that? So can we kind of like tease some of this out together? So I'd love if any of you are open to share. You can just go ahead and unmute, and then and we can hear from you.
I have some thoughts, but so first of all, my favorite resource was taking care of babies. I liked her to a certain extent to like at least have an idea of what was normal. So that was really helpful in figuring out, my baby is so many months old, what is normal in terms of how many naps, how long they should be napping. So that was one of my favorites, and her blogs are free in that regard. I think oh my God, what was the question?
Yeah, I know
Beyond like,
it's so vast because,
I know.
that's the thing is like these parents are getting asked, is your
Oh
baby
yeah.
through the night yet. And it's like, hold on, there's so many things to consider with that.
Oh, I think the other thing too, that's right. So there's also documentaries on Netflix called Babies or Making Babies. And so there was a documentary on sleep patterns with babies. And honestly, it doesn't really start regulating until like 12 months old. And I would agree with that from personal experience. We traveled with my son internationally to Morocco when he was 9 months old. And then we traveled internationally to London when he was like 15 months old. And there was some very clear jet lag at 15 months old versus 9 months old. He was like, okay, well, whatever, I'll sleep whenever I can. So I definitely think there is a shift that happens at around 12 months old where things get to be a little bit more steady. I mean, I still wake up sometimes at night. There's still regressions that happen, even at 20 months old, but it definitely gets better for sure at the 12-month mark for most people, I think. So,
Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for those resources and just kind of normalizing the fact that it takes a while for babies to sleep through the night. And actually, like you were mentioning, there are sleep regressions, so it's normal. Like there's the 4 month sleep regression, and times where it's not going to be this static thing. And babies have these nutritional needs as well, so they really can't necessarily. Awesome. Okay, yes, Karina, I would love to hear what do you have to share about that? What are your thoughts?
Well, going with what you said with the nutritional needs, it very much depends on what the baby is having. If they're having formula or if they're being breastfed, if they are being breastfed, they're going to feed 10 to 12 times a day. So it's like every 2 to 3 hours, they're going to be up and about, which is best, actually. It's best for them. It's best for them nutritiously. It's best for them to decrease the um, sudden death syndromes. I mean, there's so much benefit behind breastfeeding. I'm a huge proponent of it. And that's a huge, large um, consideration when it's about sleep for both mother and babies.
That's such a great point. We have to look at that too. Like maybe it's not that every baby is going to be the same. Like what are they being fed and what's that process? And yeah, their age. There's so many things to take into consideration here. So thank you for talking about that. Nicole says, every baby, every human, in parentheses, is different. My baby slept through the night in her crib at 4 months, but right after went through sleep regression. And then she says, I always say try your best to instill a good routine, but don't be hard on yourself when your baby disrupts that routine. That is such great advice. Yeah, that kind of speaks to the um, self-compassion, for us too, because when you have a baby, it's all, try this thing, see how this works with your baby. And then it's nice to have just backup plans, for stuff. But it is a lot of times trial and error. But at least knowing ahead of time that it is probably going to be a lot of trial and error can help you to feel like you're not crazy, or you're not alone in this. So thank you. Yeah, Jenny, what did you have to share on this topic?
Yeah, this is a really good topic, and I feel like every new parent struggles with sleep because we have been conditioned to sleep, 8 hours a night and in a dark room, and at least in the US, that's very much how we assume sleep should happen. And I think that babies are not given those instructions before birth. That this is how we as a society would like to sleep. And so, it can be a challenge. And I think often for me, it was more of a challenge figuring out how to be gentle with myself and my baby in terms of recognizing that sleep was not at night was not a norm for my baby. One of the best things I ever did in my second postpartum was take the clock out of my room because it would just freak me out. Like every time I would look at the clock and realize that, oh, you only have this many more hours, it just made it worse. And when I took it out, I had no idea. I was kind of in la la land and would just nurse my baby and put him back to sleep. So that was one thing. And then the other thing I did that helped a lot was my husband would wake up earlier than me in the morning and I would hand over the baby and be like, okay, baby's been fed. You go do whatever you're going to do. And I'd get 30 minutes or an hour or sometimes even longer of like sleep where I was not like expected to be the one to wake up. And that almost made more difference than anything else, like at all that I ever did. Yeah. So those are my recommendations. But yeah, my kids took a long time to sleep through the night and it was rough. It is just a rough phase. Yeah.
Thank you for those ideas and suggestions, like taking the clock out and handing the baby off if you can, if you have someone who lives with you who can take the baby for a walk, or do something fun with the baby for that half hour or an hour. Oftentimes we can get better sleep in the morning. I find that's just true for a lot of moms for whatever reason. Like early morning, we can sleep a little more soundly. So thank you for sharing those game changers for you. I appreciate it. And then Amelia, yes, I'd love to hear other thoughts.
So I want to add on a little bit more about kind of like survival for the parents in terms of sleep. So when you look at how like the way patterns go with sleep, the best segments of sleep, if you're going to do naps, is either a 20-30 minute power nap, an hour and a half, or 3 hours. That's kind of like a full REM cycle is 3 hours. So even if, let's say, you can't get like a full night rest of 8 hours where it would allow you to go through 2 cycles of REM sleep, if you can somehow get, 3-4 hours and another 3-4 hours segment in your day somehow can really help you survive. And if not that, try to go for the 20-30 minute power nap or the hour and a half nap to kind of help you refresh from everything. And then another trick I have in terms of dealing with insomnia or definitely sleeping is yoga nidra is like a really, really good way of compensating. If you can't fall asleep or there's some form of insomnia, yoga nidra is a really good way to kind of help relax your body and like get into a meditative state. So even if you can't get sleep, at least you can be in a meditative state to kind of help rest your brain to feel refreshed at some level.
Those are some great tips for, yeah, like we can't necessarily change the baby's sleep routine, but how can we support ourselves and making sure that we're getting the sleep that we need? So, yeah, I love that. Yeah, check out the Yoga Nidra. I know that Insight Timer is an app that's free that has a bunch of different guided meditations, including Yoga Nidra. And you can even put in, like, I have 10 minutes, I want a guided meditation about yoga nidra or about like the ocean or something like that, and you can kind of curate it to whatever your needs are. And that's one that I like to recommend a lot because, yeah, they've actually done some studies that illustrate that if you're meditating, it can be more restful for your brain and your nervous system even than sleep at times. So it is a great way to kind of like catch up. Yeah, I love that. What else? Who else has something they'd like to share about ideas, tips, tricks as far as supporting infant sleep or supporting parents in getting what they need if they're getting up, all hours of the day and night for supporting their baby? I want to say too, I feel like normalizing this is really important. So, like talking to partners as well ahead of time, like just so this is what our lives are going to be like. If someone's having a baby and they have a partner that they live with, this can be really helpful because that idea that babies are going to sleep through the night, I mean, they often don't, and most don't early on. But I think this idea still just pervades. So, talking about what normal infant sleep is like, or what it can look like, what are the different variations of what a healthy newborn or infant is going to be sleeping, that can be really helpful. Um, yeah, so Jenny says the official definition of sleeping through the night for an infant is 6 hours, not 12. So that's an important thing for us to consider too. That would be like, a pretty decent stretch for an infant. And yeah, and I also want to say too, like for our own sleep, it is actually very important to prioritize our sleep as the caregivers of infants. And there's a correlation between lack of sleep and postpartum mood disorders. And so it actually is really important that we have what we need with this, even if it's going to be in broken up segments of like, like you mentioned, like 3 hours here, 3 hours here, an hour and a half here. We need to have more sleep. Like if our segments are going to be short, we need to have more of those segments. So whereas normally we get by with like, let's say, 6 hours of sleep, I always recommend to clients that they need to actually get a solid 8 or 9 hours of sleep. It's just going to be 2 hours here, 3 hours here, an hour and a half here. So looking at a whole 24-hour period, we need to make sure that you're getting even a little more, because when you have it straight like that, you get more well rested than when it's broken up like that. So sleep actually needs to be a major priority for moms or for the primary caregiver for the baby. And there's lots of different strategies. Do you guys have any strategies that you'd like to share as far as how parents can take shifts with things, or what have you seen work well? Like how do people actually do this where they're getting enough sleep and their baby is getting their needs met? What have you seen? Like, can you talk about what a healthy situation might look like with this? Maybe a postpartum doula, or yeah, anyone else who'd like to share with this? Okay, sorry, just had to remove someone from the chat there. Okay. So I feel like what I've seen is, if it can be like, you're going to take like a 2 hour, 3 hour nap, and then I'm going to be with the baby the entire time at that point, so that you don't have to worry about being woken up. That's one of the things, like, if we are sort of on call, meaning that we are sleeping, however, if the baby wakes up, we are the ones who are going to be taking care of the baby. We generally speaking are going to get less restful sleep. So being able to take shifts with that can help a lot, especially if there's a mom or a primary caregiver who deals with anxiety. Being able to just be off, like I'm off work, if you will, for this 3 hours. This other person is completely taking care of the baby during that time. If you can have that, a couple times during that 24-hour period, that can make a big difference as well for getting the better sleep. And that, of course, helps to reduce anxiety, the better sleep too. Okay, well, I'd love to hear anything else, any other, like what else are you seeing with families where you're like, man, this one is a difficult thing. Families are having a hard time with this. I'd love to be able to shed some light on this. I'm gonna just open it up. You can put it in the chat if you like, or you can just unmute. What are you seeing as you're supporting families? Or if you have little ones at home, what's your biggest thing right now? What's been the most difficult thing for you?
I think one of the hardest things that I deal with when it comes to sleep is when I'm trying to teach families about safe sleep practices. A lot of families are co-sleeping with their babies just because of cultural preference. Maybe they don't have the space, they can't afford a crib. And so luckily my program, we are great about being able to navigate certain situations, but when it is something that is just a preference for mom, because it makes her feel more secure having baby there, it is hard to navigate those situations by saying, like, it is safer for a baby to perhaps sleep in a separate area. If you're preferring this and you're wanting to stick with this, like, what can we do then to ensure baby's safe in your bed? And so kind of just navigating through that can be difficult.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for bringing that up. Like, how do we have safe co-sleeping? What do the studies show about that? So, some of those things would be like, we need to make sure that nobody who is sleeping with the baby is on any prescription medication, where they might not be able to wake up easily, that neither are smokers, that the mattress is a firm mattress, that the baby is being breastfed, that yeah, those are some of those things. I know that there's more, but I think, yeah, if maybe I can find that as somebody else is chatting, but the safe co-sleeping, how can we do the safer co-sleeping for those who prefer that for any number of reasons. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, important to be safe about that. Yeah, thank you. Awesome. Okay, and then yeah, thank you. Adriana was sharing for a success story. A family I work with has been splitting shifts. Dad usually takes on the night shifts and gives baby pumped breast milk, and mom is on call all day. It's ended up working well for them, and baby is almost 2 now. Sweet. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's great. And I think that illustrates, how it can be so important to have other people offering support, where it's not just that all of the childcare is going to fall on the mom, that it's so important for us to advocate for ourselves, that not only is it going to improve our lives and our babies' lives to have support, but we actually need support. As the mom or as the primary caregiver for the infant, we need support and able to, in order to continue to do that sustainably long term. So that can be, in the form of meals. It can be in the form of like holding the baby while you sleep or take a shower. I'm curious what you guys have as far as suggestions for if someone's going to be having a baby and they're like, wait, I'm going to need help. Like I don't, like my husband, let's say their partner is working 2 jobs or something like that. And they're like, I had no idea that I'm going to need help. How can we help this person to kind of get a sense of what they're going to need? So what are some of the things that you realize that you need and that other people can help you with? What are some suggestions that our group has here? I'd love to hear if you had her right in front of you to be able to offer some ideas and support. Yeah, Karina.
Well, not so much of an idea right now, but what I wanted to bring up is to prenatally, while they're still pregnant, to make them aware. A lot of people don't understand this. They feel like, oh no, we may not need that much help, or they're especially the first time parents. These are the population that I work with mostly, and so they don't realize the amount of help they will need once the baby is here. Even if they have family members, they still need that help. So make them aware of that support group that they will go to, someone that can be there for them and someone that can take that, I don't want to say weight off, but that responsibility from them. So then this way they can understand, okay, yeah, I need to be prepared so it doesn't catch me off guard once it's there. I think prenatally it's something that it must be done. Sadly, Medicaid only covers 1 hour of postpartum doula. So you can't get much done. So a lot of times, I thank God that I'm able to put more of my time in it. But yeah, sadly, there's not a lot of help to do postpartums. And, by the time the mom gets to open up, time is up. So how can you just say, okay, no, my hour's up, I gotta go. So no, so a lot of support. It needs to be awareness that not just the mom, but a family, people who are breastfeeding. They don't realize the amount. I mean, they want to breastfeed. They want to give their babies the best, right? But once they're in it, they're like, this is a lot for me. I don't know if I can handle this. I don't know if I can do this. And this is what I would like to bring up, is just the awareness that needs to be spread.
Yeah, thank you for speaking to that this is not just a baby born to a mom, but this is a baby born to a family, a baby born to a community, and that we all, have some responsibility, those of us who are connected with this baby. So, and I think it's important to normalize asking for help, which is not easy. It is, I think, difficult, actually. And especially when all that is placed on the mom, that she's going to have to ask for help, that can be uncomfortable. and it can be awkward. But the more that we normalize this, the better. So a couple thoughts that I have too are the Seven Sisters program. This is something that you can look up online, and it's basically just a system. There's also a book that was written. Actually, it's an Arizona mom who wrote this book. And it talks about how you can create a system so that nobody is overwhelmed. And simply, it's that you have seven people who are seven sisters, is what they say. So seven, this can be a relative, this can be a coworker, it can be a community member, it can be a church member, but seven individuals who commit to support this mom and this family when the baby is born. And what they do is they commit to 1 day a week for the first 6 weeks, which is basically the 40 days, which we know from many different cultures all over the world takes at least 40 days for someone to recover from childbirth. So, and I mean, I'm talking about recover physically to the extent that they can be up and about and cooking dinners and things like that. And that's, of course, if there were no extenuating circumstances or complications.
Wow, this is amazing for our community. Oh my gosh. Thank you that is amazing. Thank you.
Yes, yeah,
Wow.
it's awesome. And I had seven sisters for myself. So I found seven women that I knew that I could ask for help. And so then they each took, like, one of them took every Monday, for 6 weeks. And she would just drop a meal off at my house and, visit for a couple minutes and maybe do a real small chore, like, I don't know, like help me fold the diaper laundry because I was doing cloth diapers, something like that. It wasn't like clean my house or, nothing like that, but just like a meal. And then, I had my Tuesday sister. And in that way, everybody's busy, things come up. So if my Monday sister couldn't come for some reason, I knew I would have my Tuesday sister, So it was like nobody in my seven sisters felt overwhelmed. It was like once a week, they just make a little bit more, when they're making their dinner for that night.
Yes, yes, and nobody feels lonely. They all know that someone's coming in the next day, and if that person doesn't come, it's okay. The next day, someone will come, and then that's just amazing, amazing.
Yeah, it's the way for us to create our village, where it's not something that's built in to our lives or the systems that, in which we live, but it's something that we can do. And, if you are someone who is, I don't know, like maybe there's a baby shower or something that's happening, this would be an excellent thing to bring to someone's baby shower. Like, hey, I've got a sign-up sheet for seven sisters, and that's something, and all it is just once the baby's born, then you can be the person to coordinate. Oh, thanks, Jenny. Here we go. Seven Sisters for 7 Days. Here's the book, Michelle Peterson. Yeah. So the book is short. It's not a long read. It's awesome. But you can also just kind of use this system, you know. Yeah, thankful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, how we can support mothers and how can we create our own communities? So, yeah, and there's a sample letter in there, and that's really helpful because it can be hard to know how to ask for help. Like it's uncomfortable. So the sample letter that's in there is great because it's like, here's what I'm doing. It's called Seven Sisters. This is what it looks like. It's actually been, in indigenous communities for a long time. They've had this level of support. Here's how we can create this in our own community now. And so I have had seven sisters for myself, and then I've also been a seven sister multiple times now, and I can attest, I never once felt overwhelmed by being a seven sister. It was easy. It was like, oh, I don't know, I'm making a curry. I'm just going to do a double batch, and then I just bring that over. And the hardest part has been with the moms, like actually saying yes, that I like to clean people's toilets. And because I feel like that's, like just having a nice clean toilet in your master bathroom, doesn't that just kind of feel like everything's going to be okay? So anyway, that's what I like to do. They don't let me sometimes. But or just sweeping the kitchen or whatever little things, like that's another thing I found to be helpful for the mental health piece is just having at least one place in the house that's really clean. Like for some people, it's the countertops. Like that's their thing. If the countertops are clean, they feel like they can do this. For some people, it's the kitchen floor, or it might just be their bedroom, or maybe it's their cart, like having the cart that's next to the bed that has the book and the phone charger and the water bottles and all those kind of things. Like if the cart is organized. So, yeah. Jenny says, I was a seventh sister for a friend, and one day she asked me to vacuum her bedroom. I felt like I was a rock star getting to do that for her. Yes, right? It feels so good. I've also gotten to vacuum mom's bedrooms, and it feels so good, doesn't it? You feel like you're actually making a difference. So much of us, like, oftentimes what happens with new parents, I think, is that people are like, let me know if I can help, and then it ends there because the people who've offered that are like, well, she'll reach out if she needs something. But it's so hard to reach out, or sometimes people aren't willing or able to reach out emotionally until they're in a really desperate spot. So if somebody says, like, let me know if I can help, like you're talking about, we need to be communicating to parents when they're pregnant. If they say that, you must have a specific thing right then. Like, yes, I'm actually going to have a meal train. Like, that's another thing. There's mealtrain.org, I think. And that's another thing. You can set up a meal train for someone so that even people that are in different states, family members, they want to help, they don't know what to do. Great. Get me a gift card, or, set up to have food delivered to my house. The meal train will actually have a week or weeks, like it looks like a calendar basically. And you can just sign up and say, okay, like on Tuesday the 25th, I am going to send over dinner. And then, you can go on, and I oftentimes, because of my schedule, will do like a DoorDash. I don't always come over to somebody's house for Seven Sisters. I can't always do that, but I can send over a DoorDash, and I'll say, I'll send over, something delicious and it'll be on that Tuesday night. So that's another thing. So if anybody asks, if you're watching this and you're pregnant, you're going to be having a baby soon. If anybody says, let me know how I can help, great. That literally means this is a person who wants to help you and they need you to guide them. That is a request that they're making to you to guide them. So like having a meal train, you can set this up yourself. I have been with so many moms who are like, well, nobody set that up for me. No problem. You can go on there and set up your own meal train. That's not weird or awkward at all. That's like just planning. That's literally just planning for what you need. And then you can have a link, and it's so simple. You can paste that link onto your social media if you like, if you're comfortable with that. You can do a group text out to it. You can send it to all your coworkers, put it up on a board in the workroom, the break room at work. Awesome. Okay. Yes, Amelia, I'd love to hear. What do you have to add to that?
Actually, I have a question to ask for everyone who has more experience with this. What do you recommend for women who would like to do a meal train, but they're afraid to ask because they have certain restrictions in their diet? They might be gluten-free, they might be coming off of gestational diabetes, so they would prefer something low carb. Like, what are your recommendations of how to approach that when you feel like you're adding one more extra thing? Like you're just asking for a meal train, but then you have certain health concerns or conditions that also need to be addressed with the meals. How can parents actually address that and still feel supported?
That's such a great question. If anybody would like to share, you're welcome. And then I want to quickly just share that if you use mealtrain.org, they actually have a spot for that. So they ask you, it's like overt. It's like, what are your meal restrictions or nutrition restrictions? Because so many people these days are gluten-free or dairy-free or soy-free. So they can easily put that in there, and then it's like apparent. But yeah, outside of that, I'm curious what anybody else would like to share with that.
I can
Yeah,
share.
Jenny. Yeah.
Um, I will say, as someone who has done meal trains for people in the past, it always helps if they put like some ideas of meals on there. Like this is some of the things that I like to eat, helps a lot, right? Because then I can be like, oh, okay, I can make that. Or if they list places that they like to eat from with like some you can either just give them something or you can DoorDash it. But if they tell you, we like this, this, and this, that's super easy. You can go click, click, click. Yeah, I think there's that. I also think like if you have someone who's willing to set that up for you, who wants to be there for you for 6 weeks, once a month, they probably want to know what you want to eat too, right? They might even call you and ask you, because, it would be awful to make something that they couldn't even eat. So I feel like that might be a conversation to even have with yourself, like, okay, if this person likes me enough to to come visit me once a month or once a week and bring me a meal, maybe our relationship can deepen into, hey, this is the kind of stuff that I like to eat. And if you want any more ideas, let me know. Because, when we're doing that, we want them to feel comforted and loved. I think that's what the meal does, right? It makes you feel like, oh, okay, I'm supported. And if you're getting a meal you can't eat, right, that's not what anybody would want to do. So it may just be a conversation too.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that just, I don't know, I guess I'll say a general statement. I think as women, we are afraid of being a burden, to someone else or asking too much. And I think that when we're going to have a baby, this is a time where we can think about the fact that we're not just asking on behalf of ourselves, we're asking on behalf of our baby. Because if mom is taken care of, baby's probably going to be well taken care of. And if mom has her resources met and her needs met, baby's probably going to have their resources and their needs.
Uh-oh, did we lose Jen, or is my Wi-Fi stuck?
Am I
She's-
back?
Oh, there we go.
You're back now.
Dang it, I cut out. I'm sorry. Shoot. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but maybe there are videos going. There we go. The video's back.
Coming back.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool. Okay. I also wanted to do a quick thing to share about the Safe Sleep bed sharing thing. The Safe Sleep 7 bed sharing song. This is from La Leche League. So this is the way to have the safer bed sharing. So it goes like this. No smoke, sober mom, baby at your breast. Healthy baby on his back, keep him lightly dressed. Not too soft a bed, watch the cords and gaps. Keep the covers off his head for your nights and naps. So those are some of the ways to help with safer bed sharing. Awesome. Oh my gosh. Okay, Adriana says it can be, yeah, like if people are like, let me know how I can help. It can be well-intentioned, a well-intentioned sentiment, but leaving it there puts the mental load, yes, and responsibility on the caregiver. Exactly. Yes to meal trains and echoing the dietary options on meal trains. Thank you for the Seven Sisters plug and for acknowledging the systems like it have been done by so many other indigenous tribes and peoples. Yes, absolutely. We need to learn from indigenous folks, and we need to learn from our own ancestors, about how to take care of new families. So I want to do a check-in with you, Jenny, on time. Like, is this about time for us to wrap up?
It's 1 o'clock, so it's up to you. Yeah, but
Okay, maybe if we can just have maybe one more topic to explore, I'd love to have anything else so this will be our last topic. Anything that's like on the forefront, if you're with families, what else? We talked about sleep, the support in postpartum, what else? Or it could be another aspect of support postpartum. What are you finding that these families really are confused by or are needing support with? Yes, Jenny.
For me and a lot of the families I work with as a lactation consultant, navigating your relationship with your partner and your relationship with your family can be really challenging. Many of us have found ourselves fighting with our partners a lot more than we thought we would about things that we didn't think we had to draw out. Right? And some of that is sleep deprivation fueled, I'm sure, but I think that is something that is unexpected and maybe it was unexpected with every postpartum for me, right? I was just so excited about the baby and I was very focused on my health and the baby being okay, and forgot that actually I still like my husband and might want to continue a relationship with him postpartum, right? Um, yeah, so I think if someone had come to me and been like, hey, going to be kind of rough, and said the same thing to my husband with our first, second, third baby, and was like, you guys want to maybe sit down and talk about like what your hopes and dreams are, and then like what is non-negotiable for you. I think that would have been really helpful. I know one of our leads, Dina Tibshraeny, actually had given a presentation on this at one of our conferences, and my husband went to it and he was like, oh my gosh, it would have freaking saved our lives. I can't even believe how that would have changed things if we had just discussed what we were going to do. So highly recommend doing something like that. Sometimes it helps to have a therapist or a coach of some kind, or maybe your doula or your midwife or a friend, but just sitting down and having those conversations is super helpful. And even with your family too, you know, they may be weirded out by it, but having a conversation with your mom or your mother-in-law about what I do want and what I don't want can save a lot of issues, right? Maybe you do want them to come live with you, and maybe you want that to be the last thing that ever happened. So, right? And so those are important things to think about. And I think if I go back to what I wish I knew, I think that might be the biggest one, because you have to rely on so many people. And if you don't have good relationships with them, it makes it so much harder.
Thank you for speaking to that. Yeah, 100%. Like, I remember there's a book called Baby Makes Three that was recommended to my husband and I, and we did not read it. And we were like, we're so close. Our relationship is amazing. You know, for us, this was a wanted baby, and we've been trying for. And so we're like, this is going to be awesome. You guys, I had already had a baby before, and I still didn't read that book. And then I was like, oh my goodness. And we had a rough patch. I mean, like it almost ended us having my daughter. So thank you for that. That is, yeah, we do need to talk about that with our partners. Like, what do you want from this? What level of involvement are you going to have here? And how are we going to have time together? Like one of the things I recommend to clients is like at least once a day, have a full minute where you can like be across from your partner and look into each other's eyes. And just like you don't even need to talk, you know, but just like be with each other, like holding hands, just like taking some breaths, like holy shamoly, we are freaking doing this thing. Like, dang, you know, because it's like that. It's so intense. Okay, Amelia, thank you. She is sharing from the Gottman Institute, Gottman, Gottman.com, Bringing Baby Home for Parents, a really helpful resource to support parental relationships once bringing baby back home. Thank you. Amelia, I don't know if you're able to share a little bit more about that, or like
Yep.
you've got that.
Same author as the one you had mentioned, Jennifer. He is a renowned relationship scientist and psychologist, I think. And so he has a lot of great principles in terms of how to maintain a relationship. And they offer a 3-week online workshop regularly to help couples prepare for bringing baby home. And my husband and I, we did it before we had our first child. And that I think it made a huge difference. One, in setting expectations on how much the relationship was going to change. And also, and the demands of the baby. Like I remember they had one part of the workshop where they're like, okay, the baby's going to need X, Y, Z. It's going to take this long. How much time is left for anything else? And you're going through it, you're like, oh God, like, how am I actually going to make it through this? But I think it was really eye-opening to go through that workshop and then also come up with practices of how to have like a supportive relationship and to build each other up and be there for each other instead of breaking it down. So I found this workshop very helpful for our marriage, even though we were married for like 7 years at this point. And I felt like we had a really good foundation. It just kind of helped reinforce it to go in a positive place.
That is fantastic. Thank you for that resource. That is really cool. I didn't know about that. That is really, really cool. Thank you. And that's so worth the investment. That really is. Because, yeah, at the end of the day, this is the person that you've been relying on who's also tired. You're both tired and, potentially struggling to get your own needs met. So I love that. How can we fortify this relationship when we really, really need each other? Yeah, that's beautiful. Does anybody else have any other suggestions for maintaining this relationship? And you had brought up, Jenny, also about other relationships, like how do you set healthy boundaries with other family members who might want to help, but is their help going to be a hindrance to you in some way? And how can it be help that's actually going to help? I'd love for anybody to share ideas on this or personal
I
experiences.
I have a little bit of an idea, which I personally had experience with, is hanging your cape. You're not a hero. You're not you're not going to do it all, even though you want to. You want to be that hero mom that I'm gonna do it all from top to bottom. And no, hang that cape, accept the help, know your limitations. And actually, that's something that I went into. I thought, okay, I left my job. I'm gonna stay home. I'm gonna be a stay-home mom. So I'm gonna do from A to Z. And I jumped it all in making my own foods, cloth diapers, you name it, I did it. And so thinking that I was doing it to feel good about myself, like look what a kind of mom I'm being, but I was overwhelming myself and I was rejecting the help because I said, I'm a stay-home mom. I got this. I can do this. This is what I'm doing. And no, nobody's keeping tabs. So don't be hard on yourself. Accept the help and hang your cape.
Mm, thank you so much for sharing that. That is so beautiful. Yes, it's like, can we do it all? Yes, and at what expense? I think it's like a yes and. Yes, we could do it all, but then is that sustainable? How is that going to affect our mental health? Like all of that. So thank you. Thank you so much for speaking to that. Yeah, Amelia, what do you have to add to that?
I just want to add that when they do studies about trying to understand like the mental load and caregiving of a like newborn and like little young kids, they say like taking care of a young kid's equivalent to 2 full-time jobs. So I think just keep in mind that when you bring a child into this world, it's not a job for one, it's a job for many. And so you really got to like divide and conquer like the roles and responsibilities in taking care of the family. So
Man, that's such a great frame to have for this. Like, I love that. This is the equivalent of 2 full-time jobs. This is something that's going to be brought into our family. It's like the two of us are each taking on another full-time job as far as the time and the mental load and all of that. So thank you for that. That's such a great frame to be able to put into perspective and why when a baby comes into the home, it feels so overwhelming when if you haven't seen it from that perspective already. Yeah, that is awesome. I also want to share, something I've seen that has been a struggle for people is that they're like, well, if I have my husband do it this way, he's not going to do it right. Or not going to do it. If my mother-in-law, she's going to do it this other way, and I don't want it done that way. So, what do you guys have to share as far as advice, tips? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because that's true. That probably is true. That, not everybody's going to do everything exactly as you would have it. So it's a challenge because it's like, is that going to cause some stress? Is somebody else doing it? So how would you advise someone who brings that to you as a concern for why they don't want to ask for help? Jenny, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Um, I think a friend of mine had talked about this, that you got a couple options. You can lower your expectations You can decide you don't want help with that particular thing, right? You can give them a like step-by-step instruction thing, which works very well for some people. Actually, it works very well for my husband, so I probably should have done that a long time ago. Yeah, like those are kind of your options. And I feel like for me, it would probably work best to do step-by-step instructions with people that I felt like would receive it well. And then maybe just not ask the other ones to do that particular thing if it made, right? Like vacuuming my living room, I think everybody could probably do that to my specifications, no problem, right? Like I'm not that picky about that. But my husband's really picky about how the dishwasher is loaded. And so so we would either have to show a picture of what done looks like or not get help with that particular thing, right? So I don't know, that would be my thoughts. Plus, there's so many things to do, right? Just even laundry in and of itself, right? Like even if it's just the baby's laundry and that's the only thing they're doing, right? And there's like, please sort into whites and colors and wash and fold. Like that I feel like that's something that would be easier to hand off for me.
Yeah, I love that. And that also sort of points to the idea of putting some of this together while you're still pregnant, if you can, if you're still pregnant and you're watching this, or if you're working with people that are still pregnant, like, can you look at the specific things? Like, okay, like I have to have my laundry done this specific way. So if people are going to help, there's a step by step for that. But you don't really care how the dishwasher is loaded, or you don't really care how it's vacuumed. So yeah, for each individual, maybe it's just like that particular thing that you really don't want anybody screwing up. Can you do a step by step for that? And then allow the other things to be done however the heck they get done. Yeah, I love that. Camille says, that is exactly what we did. We had everything typed up step by step, and it allowed my mom to not even have to think about it. She said it was such a relief because we didn't want to create more stress. She didn't want to create more stress. Yeah, absolutely. Like people are there because they genuinely want to help, and they want to help because they want you to have less stress, you know? So yes, I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that that's what worked well for your family.
I think for me, I elicited help with people I knew really well. So I delegated tasks that I knew they would like to do and would feel like confident in what they did. So like my mom just worried about cooking and my dad worried about like cleaning like the dishes and taking out the trash and recycling, like, and that's where like their their jobs, that's all they focused on. And then my husband kind of helped in with the things that where we were like maybe more particular about or would, take care of in between all the other things. So that's how it worked for me when I was pregnant. So
I love that. Like looking at people's strengths, and like divide and conquer, like we've got like this person is a really great cook and she already cooks how I like. And they can do some cleaning where it doesn't really matter what it's going to look like or how it's done. And yeah, that's fantastic. And I love that you're talking about bringing in your dad, like other people too, like in the wider, community for us that we can ask for this help from. It doesn't need to just be our mom, let's say, or our mother-in-law. It can be our dad, our father-in-law, our sister-in-law. We can really, yeah, expand that out. So thank you. My gosh, you guys, we have like sped through this. We've only covered three major topics, but I feel like we've got so much good information out there. So thank you so much for sharing. And I feel like we could, have a whole day of this. So this was awesome. I want to share too that a lot of what we've been alluding to with these things are about healthy boundary setting. And actually, our virtual village for next month is going to be on healthy boundary setting. And so we're going to talk about a lot of these things, like how do we overlay healthy boundary setting into our parenting and into, the first 5 years of life, even into pregnancy, even thinking about childbirth and that process. How do we want to have healthy boundaries with that? Yeah, and all the way through our parenting, and also in our relationships with our spouse or our partner or our work. How do we have healthy boundaries with our work while we're doing parenting, or, if we're on maternity leave or things like that too. So, Michelle Lacey is going to be facilitating that for us. So I'll be here to introduce her and to gather us up and get our community connection happening. But she's the director at Women's Health Innovations, and she is amazing. She is going to be able to bring this to us from the perspective of a mental health professional. And what do we need to know? And she's going to be here to answer questions that we have. So I highly recommend tuning in for that one. We'll have that one also on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube right now watching this as a recording, check that one out next. I'm sure we'll have that up soon here. So let's see, is there anything else, Jenny, that you would like to share? One last thing, Camille. Yeah, thank you. So Camille says, one last thing. We prepared so much for the changes that would happen to me, but we didn't talk about the changes that would happen to my husband. Oh, such a great point. Both physically and mentally. It's so important to include your spouse in prep. Yes, because, especially if it's your first, they've had your pretty much full undivided attention when you guys are together. And now all of a sudden, if you're the primary caregiver for the baby, that's kind of your world, is like, I'm going to sleep, I'm going to eat, I'm going to be maybe nursing, and I'm going to be having all of my attention on this other new human when I'm not getting my most basic needs met, like sleeping and eating. And that can be really challenging for partners to navigate that. Like, where am I in this picture? And also, if the mom's breastfeeding, that can be difficult for dads of like, well, what's my role in nourishing this baby or in taking care of the baby? So how can you find ways to involve them? I'm curious, Camille, if you have any thoughts on that too. Like what worked for you guys, or if you had known all this, in hindsight,
Yeah.
um, yeah, what would you share?
Well, for me, and mostly the thing that I was referencing in this is that for my husband, it was the trauma of the birth itself that we didn't prepare him for. And so obviously the stuff after, because we had had foster children, so we knew the kind of the ropes of having kids and what we needed to do, but it was that aspect of it. And so even to this day, he thinks about it and the things that can, and we haven't, it's still an open wound because he hasn't really dealt with that aspect of it. We prepared me for it. Like I knew it was going to happen. I had my midwife, I had my doula, I had the people supporting me, but there was no one supporting him. And so we have to remember that our spouses are witnessing this and they're seeing the things that are happening, good or bad, indifferent, doesn't matter. It's their perspective on it as well, because if something were to happen, how are they reacting? Those kinds of things. And so I think we don't think about our spouse or our significant other having any kind of reaction to it. We just think, oh, they're there and they're along for the ride, and it's about me because I'm the one giving birth, right? But in reality, it is about us, but it's also about those people in the room and the experiences that they're having. And we did not expect, like my husband did not expect. He's like, I'm gonna be fine. I don't need any help. I don't need anything like that. But in reality, he was like, whoa, I did not expect this.
Thank you for
I
bringing that up.
Can I give a resource that I think was really helpful for my husband and can help for other people who are like the primary supporting partner? I found the Bradley method extremely helpful for my husband to prepare for labor and delivery. He was kind of like, he's an engineer, so he's totally dissociated from like the medical world. And so I was like, you need to know what to expect. And I felt like the Bradley method was really good in one, helping him set expectations of what to expect with childbirth. And then two, also, how can he be a part of the process to support his partner going through the birthing process? So that would be my recommendation to most people about if you want to be a supportive partner, the Bradley method was really helpful for that. And then, and honestly, he like wanted nothing to do with like labor delivery. He just wanted to like sit and watch. And by the end of the Bradley method class, he wanted to actually like catch the baby. Like before, he was like, hands off, this is not happening. Like, I'm just gonna be here to be a spectator. And it totally helped improve his comfort of what was to come.
Thank you for that resource. That's awesome. Yeah, I think it does need to be it's an important part of the conversation, of like what the partner can expect. And there can be things that can be really hard for partners, where they can feel powerless as their partner is going through it, whether that just be normal contractions, or a deviation from their plan, having to go into a C-section, or who knows, things like that can be really hard for partners. So that's a great resource. And for anybody, I think just you can always ask if you have a midwife, a supportive midwife, or if your medical provider is someone who is supportive and can go there, to ask, like, what do I need to know? Like if you have a partner who's there, who's going to be with you, like for the partner to ask some questions too. Like, what do I need to know? Like what could happen, with this? What are some deviations from plans, and what might that look like? So I really appreciate you bringing that up, Camille, because I think it just kind of gets to the back burner, because there's so many other things at the prenatal visits to talk about, but that's really important too. So thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, more dad resources, free virtual out of Tucson. Groups are offered for new dads ahead of baby's arrival. This is parentaid.org, what we do, love like a dad. Are you able to bring that up, Jenny? Yeah, you're doing that right now. Thank you. Yeah, so for Tucson, are these free virtual? Awesome, out of Tucson. Is this for anyone, Adriana? Like, can people who are in different states even access this? Do you know?
Hey, yeah, yes, I do. And it's a resource I like to share with a lot of the families, especially if dad's in the picture, whether as a co-parent or as partnership. But they have a lot of options, and they have had people from other countries join in. And so, yeah, it's another free one.
Holy shamoly, I did not know about this either. This is so cool. Wow, this is great. Thank you for sharing this resource. Wow, they have a lot of blogs, and wow, this is super cool. Thank you for this. Wow, right on. All right, well, I know it's about time for us to wrap up. This was so engaging and just powerful. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom here. This was really fun, and I feel like we got a lot of good information out there. And I learned a lot as a provider, so thank you all so much for this. So I hope to get to see you next month as well. So we always meet, the virtual village is always the third Tuesday of each month. So next month, that's going to be on December 17th. It's always from noon to 1 to 1:30. We end sometime between 1 and 1:30. We always start at noon. So yeah, please continue to spread the word as well. Like I mentioned earlier, we have several villages each month, some that are online, some that are in person. So definitely check out fourthtrimesteraz.org. And on there, you can find all the villages. They're all free. And then we have our conference coming up, which is excellent for both parents and providers. And that's on Saturday, February 22nd. And it's going to be in the East Valley. And it's a wonderful time to network and also to learn and to grow. And every year we have incredible sessions, everything ranging from sexuality, sensuality, and postpartum to mental health, to, oh gosh, infant feeding, all the things that if we had a whole day like this to talk about, we talk about at the conference. And it's very affordable. There are also scholarships that are available. I believe, right, Jenny, this year we'll also have scholarships for access recipients.
Yeah, and it's really inexpensive as well. So yeah.
Yeah, it's super affordable. So I encourage you to look at that. There's information about that on the website now, right, Jenny? Or
Not quite
Not
up
quite.
yet. We're getting there.
okay, all right, it's coming.
It's
So
coming.
yeah, so save the date, February 22nd, Saturday. It's going to be amazing. Make sure that you come if you can to that. It's worth the trip down from Flag. You probably want to get out of that. It'll probably still be so cold up there. It'll be beautiful here. That's like when we want to go to Flag in June. I know you guys come here in February. All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here. Each of you have contributed so much with your energy, with your sharing, the resources. I so appreciate you. Yes, absolutely. Thank you to everyone. And I look forward to seeing you next month.